Hello and welcome to the next episode of Context Free, where I'm going to do a deep dive on ranges and slices. First, I want to do a short trip down memory lane here. This Tandy MC10 was the first computer I ever used or programmed. We had it attached to a black and white TV. Had a whopping 4K of RAM, although you could stick this, and we had it, this 16K expansion into the back for 20K of RAM total. In our case, we had no permanent storage attached, which means that if it ever got overheated or we had other things to do, we had to turn off the computer and come back again later. If we wanted whatever we had, we'd have to type it in again. There's this fantastic emulator I found online. Too bad we can't spend time on it today. It does work. In our case, we had our color computer attached to a black and white TV, which was so blurry that I couldn't tell the difference between an M and a W on the screen. By the way, interesting to point out here, Microsoft provided BASIC for this MC10 computer. One of my later computers was an Amiga 500. Microsoft provided BASIC for that also. Microsoft actually got its start providing BASIC interpreters to people making personal computers back in these days. Whatever kind of personal computer they had, whether you attach it like this and all you can do is type BASIC, or whether you had a graphical user interface, almost everything came with BASIC those days. I'm going to start with BASIC here, but I'm going to use this BASIC online website. I'm going to do a for loop. I'm going to focus on for loop for the sake, again, of ranges and slices is our focus for today. We're going to talk about looping across a range of numbers. For I equals 1, 2, 3, print I next. This should print us numbers 1 through 3 over here on the side. Execute. 1, 2, 3. I already had it left over from a previous run. We can change this to 1 to 5. Sweet. We can step over here. Instead of 1 to 5, we can step by 2. Let's run this. 1, 3, and 5. I can count down. 5 to 1, step negative 2. 5, 3, 1. Sweet. BASIC was designed to make it easy to learn to program. And in some ways, I think they really achieved that. This is pretty straightforward here. I'm going to move on now because I want to focus on not just ranges for looping, but also for slicing into your arrays and your data. And so I'm going to move directly into MATLAB, or in this case, Octave, which is a freely available version of MATLAB. So in BASIC, remember we did for I equals 1, 2, 3. In MATLAB, we'll do a very similar thing. For I equals 1, 2, but I use a colon instead of the word 2, 3, disp I end. Got to save it here for this online Octave Online thing, and I run 1, 2, 3. I can count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can step by 2, but I put the 2 between my 1 and my 5 if I want to do that. I save it and run it. 1, 3, 5. I could count down as well. One of the key things to point out here, though, that we have in MATLAB different from BASIC is that this is not just syntax for a for loop. What this really is defining an array of numbers, and the for loop is looping across that array. So if I come down over here, this is on the console side, or a read, evaluate, print loop, or REPL, R-E-P-L. This right here is a place I can type in things and have it immediately evaluated by the Octave interpreter. If I say 1 to 3, which was our original loop, it creates an array of 1, 2, and 3. This is the same thing as an array of 1, 2, and 3. Commas are not necessarily required in MATLAB. So this 1 to 3 and this array of 1, 2, and 3 are the same thing semantically. I don't know if internally they optimize this or not. So this is how things work in MATLAB. Now I want to point out that we can also use these arrays for slicing into data. Let's make a string. I'm using weak variable names today just to focus on the behaviors instead of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So there's a string now, which is an array of characters in MATLAB. I can get the first one from that array, S of 1, which will give me an A. S of 2 gives me a B. S of end will give me the G at the end of the array. I can ask for more than one of these things. I can say give me from 1 to 3, which gives me A, B, and C, which is the same thing as if I had said give me things from 1, 2, and 3 of my array. Now, I don't actually have to give all the things in the middle. I could say give me just 1 and 3, which will give me A and C. So this right here, really when I'm slicing into my array, I'm giving an array of indices that I want out again. Worth pointing out, I could say, remember earlier, 1 colon 3, that gives me an array of 1 to 3. I can't say 1 colon, 3 colon end or whatever, though. I could access the array like this, give me everything from index 3 to the end. but I can't just say 3 colon end on its own, because number one, that might be ill-defined in MATLAB. Depends on what they want to do with it. Number two, end is used for closing blocks. It only works inside of array slicing. Now I want to briefly go on to a language called Julia, which is somewhat hot these days and it's open source and is some ways got a lot of things different from MATLAB, but also is inspired by MATLAB in many ways. We'll start our for loop very similar. For I equals 1 to 3, and I can print out that number in my for loop, and I can run this, and I see 1, 2, 3. Sweet. I can change it to 5. I can do stepping, all that kind of stuff. What I want to point out here in Julia is that if I say 1 to 3 over here, it is not the same thing as an array of 1, 2, and 3. These are two different things. Semantically in the language, a range is a range, and an array is an array. Of course, I can still do, got to pay attention to which languages have single quotes or double quotes. I can still do my slicing, though. I can say only with square brackets, because I can say give me 1 through 3. Or I can say give me 3 to the end. And all that works as expected. And like MATLAB, 3 to end on its own, it doesn't like that. I'm going to move on to Python now. Again, focus on scientific computing programming languages. Python is really big these days and rising because machine learning is so hot. Python is used for machine learning because it has decades of establishment as an open source scripting language, number one, but number two, also because it has decades of established access to scientific computing libraries such as NumPy and SciPy. I'm going to start with a for loop in every case here. Let's say for I in, instead of for I equals, range of 1 to 3. First of all, I notice all of a sudden our colons are gone. This, by the way, won't quite do what you want it to do. Print I. If I run this loop, it's indentation-based blocks in Python, I will get only 1 and 2 out because Python is 0-based by default. That will out of the 0-based in its indexing generally. And so it tends to think of things in terms of an exclusive into the range. If I want to go from 1 through 3, I need to go range 1, 4, which means 1 to less than 4. If I run this, I get my 1, 2, 3 out. But really what makes more sense in Python is saying range 3, counting 0, 1, 2, again, because Python does 0-based indexing. So if I come over here, we've seen similar behavior to before. I can say range 3, just like Julia, it's an object which is separate from a list of 1, 2, and 3. Let me go do an array, a string of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, like we've been doing before. Now here's where we can see our colons back again, just like we had in MATLAB and in Julia. If I say S of, for example, 0 to 3, I'll get the first 3 things out, again, 0-based indexing. One of the nice things in Python is I can leave out that 0 and it's implied. And I can do the reverse also. I want to go 3 to the end. Instead of saying the word end like in the other languages, I'll just say 3 colon. By the way, 3 again, 0-based indexing means is the fourth thing, which is a D. And but worth pointing out, even though I can use, like I said, this colon-based slicing inside of my index operations, I can't do it outside. If I just say 0 colon 3, no go. It only works internally here. Secondarily, I can't even do this. Give me a range like I could have done in Julia or MATLAB, because ranges and slices are different things in Python. This right here is equivalent to saying colon 3. Slices give access to your slicing, which is different from ranges. Slices, on the other hand, cannot be used for your indexing for your loops. If I put a slice here, it will fail. One thing I want to point out before I move on to Python is not only can I give a starting point here and an implied end, I can also give negative indexes, saying I want all the way from 3 to 1 before the end. Instead of saying like end minus 1 or something, I just say negative 1. And that leaves off the G on the end. We're going to care about that in a minute when we get to Ruby. Personally, I think Ruby is a fantastic language as dynamically typed languages go. I prefer static typing. Let's say for I in 1.3 is how we can start a for loop in Ruby. That first part looked like Python, but then it switched. puts I end. Let's run this. We actually see 1, 2, 3 because in Ruby, 2 dots gives us a range that's inclusive by default. If we want to be exclusive, we put 3 dots. Of course, well, Ruby happens, so we only have 1 and 2 this time. Ruby is a zero-based index language, so perhaps a loop that might make more sense is 0 dot 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 3, which gives us 0, 1, and 2, which is the same thing as range 3 in Python. Now worth pointing out over here, I'm going to come over to the console side. 0 dot 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 3 is an object. I can assign it to a variable just like I could have with a range or a slice in Python, or like I could have done with a range in Julia or an array in MATLAB. And so I can store it somewhere. Let me get a string back again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I can do my indexing into here. And I use the same syntax for my standalone ranges as I do for my looping, as I do for my slicing, which is very nice and not like Python. We say 0 dot 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 3 should give me ABC. If I just get rid of the third dot, then it's inclusive, which means I get the D involved as well. I can do to the end as well, 3 dot dot negative 1. Zero-based indexing means we start with our fourth if it's index 3, all the way through 2 dots to the end. Gives me all the way through the G. If I want all but the end, I'll do 3 dots instead of 2 dots. And also to point out here, remember I had this R variable here, which was a range. I can pass this in here just fine there. Anyway, so you cannot leave them implied. The 0 or the negative 1 cannot be implied as it is in Python, but we have inclusive and exclusive ends on our ranges. Our ranges are our slices, are what we loop over. I really like that consistency. Let's move to a compiled native language, Rust, in order to look at our next batch of things and our last thing for the day. Interestingly, Rust and many other languages that have been developed since Ruby became popular have followed in the Ruby's tradition for how it does its ranges. For I in 1 dot dot 3, let's see how this works. We'll use curly braces for Rust. Println, let's type correctly instead of wrong. Let's see what we get out of this. Run. We should get 1, 2 only. It's exclusive by default in Rust, which makes sense to me for a zero-based index language like Rust is, as well as Python and Ruby. We say equals instead. Some people have trouble remembering whether 2 dots or 3 dots means what. So other languages that have sort of copied Ruby have sometimes played with the syntax a little bit. 2 dots is exclusive in Rust. Use an equals in there to be inclusive. Okay, there we go. 1, 2, 3. That's how you'll do a basic loop using a range in Rust. Let's do the string indexing again. So let's get A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And let's go ahead and print a slice of that. S 0 dot dot 3. Remember, 2 dots is exclusive in Rust. Let's get semicolons on, and this ampersand is required. I'm not going to explain the syntax. Point is, we're going to do indexing 0 to exclusive 3, which should give our ABC out. And we have it right there. Now, unlike Ruby and like Python, I can imply that 0. I can also imply the end, although negative indexing does not work in Rust. And finally, to point out, just like in Ruby, we can make ranges that stand alone. In this case, we can't leave that 0 implicit. Now we just have R as a separate variable. We should be able to run this through here. Same behavior as before. And furthermore, we can even print out that variable if we want to, though we have to use different syntax again because Rust. This should print us out first that range, and then secondly, its involvement here. Let's go on ahead and run this. So we have 0 through 3 and our slice ABC. That's where we're going to have to end it for today. There's lots more we can talk about, but that's where we can go. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.